Annenberg Media.
Mark Twain's quote is that whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting over, and that quote was made probably certainly over 100 years ago. I think it's old information, and it's important for us all to know that that's the history behind water conflict and has been for hundreds of years and will continue to be that way. I think we need to all realize that.
It's April in Nevada, and in Pyramid Lake, the Cui-ui fish, attracted by the flow from the Truckee River, are starting their spawning run. But like freshwater in other parts of the world, the water in the Truckee has long been fought over and is still in dispute. The Truckee starts in California, in the high Sierras, and flows down into the Nevada desert. But the water is hotly contested all the way from Lake Tahoe to Pyramid Lake. This program looks at the conflicting interests over this valuable resource and at the lives and livelihoods of the people for whom Truckee River water is so important. Pyramid Lake is the home of the Pyramid Lake tribe, Paiute Indians known historically as the fish eaters or Cui-ui eaters.
This water here, for what it is to us, it means more than just watching it flow in the river. What means more to us is seeing this water flow into Pyramid Lake, seeing the pelicans, seeing the Cui-ui, seeing all this life that surrounds this water flowing in the lake. That's what it means to us to see that, to make sure that we can enjoy this habitat, you know.
This is a Cui-ui, which is a large lake sucker, which is native to Pyramid Lake and the lower Truckee River. They're a very long-lived species. They'll live up to 40 years or more, and they've been listed on the endangered species list since 1967. The fish is very important culturally to the tribe, and historically they were also one of the staples of the Paiute's diet.
The Cui-ui itself, that's the foundation of our culture. That's the basis for what we believe in when we talk about our traditions, our customs, and to see the spawning occur, and for our children, like the kids that were here this morning, to witness this, it's very exciting to see it.
History kind of goes back to the, thousands of years. The Indian people were always here on the lake and then traveling around, living off the fish and the wild game that was here. All we know is, we were here, forever, and we're just generations down from our tribe. But as the white people came over, we started fighting with them over certain stuff on the lake and just different things.
The tribe didn't understand the white man's ways, and they didn't know how to get things done. And they were, unfortunately, very poorly represented by some of the government officials who were appointed to watch out for them. And it's taken them a long time, but they've learned as things have happened, and they've become much better at playing the white man's game, and now they're learning the legal angles and what's entitled to them, and they're much more able to go after it now.
For the tribe, water is a part of nature and a part of their culture. It's embedded within their way of life. They're seeking more water for Pyramid Lake and in particular for the Cui-ui's spawning runs. The fact that the Cui-ui is listed as an endangered species has enabled the tribe to procure the right to water in Stampede Reservoir, a lake near the town of Truckee in California. But this has caused anger in the Truckee community.
Michael and John Ashworth cast the line they hope will bring them a big trout. But they fear fishing at Stampede Reservoir will never be the same once 85% of this water is gone. The Fish and Wildlife Service decided it will need to take this water now at 170,000 acre-feet down to 20,000 acre-feet to save the endangered Cui-ui fish at Pyramid Lake. At Stampede Reservoir, Terry Hardesty, News Source 2.
This year is a year where Fish and Wildlife has chosen to attempt a Cui-ui spawning run in a year where there's very low natural flow from, we've had a low snow year, there's a low natural flow from natural runoff. In fact, if no reservoirs were here and there were no diversions and no water issues, if we were back in the natural state, in all likelihood the flow wouldn't be sufficient all by itself, the natural flow, to support a Cui-ui spawning run this year.
The town of Truckee was built up around the railroad, and traditional industries included timber, lumber, and ice farming. Now the economy of the town is linked much more to recreational tourism, and the people of Truckee see the water in Stampede Reservoir as an essential resource that sustains this economy.
Almost every level of our economy relates in one way or another to the environment. Certainly most directly, recreation and tourism is a key element of our economy, and that the health of our environment here relates strongly to the attractiveness of our community and our region, entire region, Tahoe, Truckee, the entire region, to people coming to visit.
So one piece of legislation, the Endangered Species Act, has proved extremely useful to the cause of the Pyramid Lake tribe.
The endangered species really saved our Cui-ui fish from extinction by allowing Stampede Reservoir up in the mountains to have enough water there to turn the flows down at certain times of the year when they spawn. And without the endangered species, you know, we'd still be fighting. I mean, we've been fighting for, ever since we can remember, trying to keep that water here. Our people were killed because of the land when the settlers first came in, and it's real hard for people to realize what actually happened back then. But you know, a lot of people were, you know, just killed because of land and greed, basically.
The Endangered Species Act is also being used by the Truckee community to keep the water in the Stampede Reservoir.
We have nesting bald eagles around Stampede Reservoir. That endangered species, the bald eagle, needs large bodies of waters, and of course they forage on the fish in the reservoir. The drawdown of the reservoir risks their ability to nest this year and produce offspring, and it also risks, in a worst case basis, their food supply.
The bald eagle does inhabit areas around Stampede Reservoir, and they are the national symbol of the United States, so naturally there's a lot of interest in that sort of an issue. But in this case, the bald eagle was basically handy. You know, the folks who don't want to lose the water up there notice that there's bald eagles around, and so they say, well, if you take all the water away, it's going to be bad for the eagles. So I think they're basically using it as a ploy to try to keep the water from being released up there.
The sympathy that I have for them is that it's sad that they don't really understand the importance of the environment, the importance of the resources that are here. I don't have sympathy for them for the fact that they're losing money. Money isn't everything. Money's only going to be there until you spend it. The water, the land, the air is what's being threatened right now by this concept of money.
People are very concerned about water. Clearly it's a big issue everywhere in many, many cases, and it's important to understand those concerns. And part of it is, gee, isn't this California water going elsewhere? I think there's more to it than just that, but I think that is a big concern, that's right.
The Truckee River rises above Lake Tahoe, and the state boundary between California and Nevada runs down the center of the lake. Legislation has now ensured that California is entitled to a guaranteed share of the water before it flows down into Nevada. But Lake Tahoe has been the center of many interstate disputes.
Interstate disputes over the water of Lake Tahoe go all the way back to the 19th century when the very first dam was built in Lake Tahoe. An engineer named Alexander von Schmidt wanted to dam the waters of Lake Tahoe and sell them to the city of San Francisco, develop a water development project to take the water west. Later in the 19th century and early 20th century were the proposals to take water from the eastern side of the lake through a tunnel over into Nevada and use the water for generating hydroelectric power. There was also a proposal in the 1930s for a steam shovel to be brought up from Reno under police guard to actually lower the lake's natural outlet by the dam. The steam shovel was brought up. It was met by a group of, both by a sheriff's posse and a group of vigilantes. Vigilantes even brought dynamite if that would be necessary. Happily, it never was. But they got an injunction against cutting the rim of the lake lower, and the steam shovel was later taken back.
However, the most significant change to the flow of the Truckee River came with the Federal Reclamation Act of 1902. Senator Francis G. Newlands of Nevada had a plan to make the desert bloom. He encouraged settlers to move to farmland around the town of Fallon as a part of what became known as the Newlands Project. Water from the Carson River was insufficient to irrigate the land, and a dam was built to divert water from the Truckee.
Where we're at here today is Derby Dam, and Derby Dam was the first construction under the Reclamation Act. The Bureau of Reclamation was developed as an agency to implement that act, and this construction of this facility was their first job. What Derby Dam does is it diverts about 125,000 acre-feet of water under a normal year to what's called the Newlands Project, which is about 60,000 acres of irrigated agriculture, which is mostly alfalfa, in the Fallon and Fernley area in Nevada.
My grandfather was a miner out in the Austin, Ione area, and 1914, the Bureau of Reclamation, at that time it was called the U.S. Reclamation Service, they put out flyers that in essence enticed the people to this project. And he seen one of them flyers and he thought that that would be a good opportunity to bring the family here. And so 1916, actually, he moved to this area and brought the family and homesteaded on some of the property that I still own. And from that point, then we've continued to farm this area, and we're into the 5th generation of the DeBraga family on the project right now. Farming, I guess, is a way of life. It's a tough life. The economics is not that good, and lots of hard work. I always say the only reason we work 24-hour days is there's only 24 hours in a day. If there's 30, we work 30-hour days sometimes. But it's rewarding when you can plant the seeds in the ground and watch them grow. And then, of course, we have cattle and stuff like that. So it's a way of life. You're kind of your own boss and things like that. So the culture and the way of life, I guess, is what makes it attractive and makes people want to do it.
The diversions at Derby Dam meant more water for Fallon, but less for Pyramid Lake. This threatened the fish in the lake, and in particular, the Lahontan cutthroat trout.
Our lake has dropped about 80 to 90 feet, and that has destroyed our Lahontan cutthroat trout fish, which used to travel up to Lake Tahoe and spawn in the streams and come back down. Huge fish on the trout, you know, up to 40, 50 pounds. And that was completely wiped out in the 40s.
I think it was fairly soon after the dam was constructed. There are written accounts of the dam gates actually being shut completely off during the time when the trout were up in the river spawning, and there just wasn't any water, and the fish just lay there in the bottom of the mud flopping around, and they all died.
Pretty tragic, really.
Well, Winnemucca was the first lake to dry up. If you look on the maps, you can see Winnemucca's off to the side there. And what happened was when they installed the Derby Dam, over the years it just started, dropping and dropping. And so Winnemucca Lake ended up just dropping down below and drying up.
In the 1960s, aided by the Endangered Species Act, the tide started to turn in favor of the Pyramid Lake tribe.
The Pyramid Lake tribe has become very aggressive in trying to correct some of these problems that have occurred. Probably the most significant thing that they did in the early going was to get the courts to recognize that too much water was going to the Newlands project. And basically there were two things that were happening. One was that the actual application of the water was considered by some to just be wasteful. There was water that was being delivered to land that did not have a water right. In some cases, people that did have water rights were receiving more than their share of the water. And so the court recognized that something had to be done to address that.
As a result of success in the courts, much less water is now diverted at Derby Dam. This has left the farmers on the Newlands project feeling under considerable pressure.
This is really the future of this valley that we're talking about here tonight. And it's important enough for all of us to get involved, and that's why your people are here tonight. You can look all over the West and see water problems being solved by litigation and legislation. Those actions generally create winners and losers. And that is not what we're trying to do here tonight. Is we're trying to find ways that we can become winners in this thing and to come up with some very difficult solutions to some problems.
We spent 5 years, from 80 to 85, negotiating this thing again that everybody agreed to. The Pyramid Tribe, the state of Nevada, California, Sierra Pacific, Irrigation District, and everybody. It wasn't until about a week before we went back for the hearings that the tribe Pyramid Lake membership said they didn't think they was getting enough out of it and was going to kill the bill. It's a two-way street, and everybody's going to have to go down it together. And if certain people's attitudes have not changed, we're not going to achieve anything. It's a wasted effort. But we're going to be there, or somebody's going to be there negotiating this thing, and hopefully it will come out well.
Thank you.
I think there's a need for the Cui-ui fish. Nobody wants to see anything extinct. I definitely don't. But I think there's a limit. There's a lot of difference between want and need. I don't think that they need the amount of water that they want, and that's been the big controversy for a number of years, is how much water they really need to recover the fish. So that's a question that's being looked at more seriously now, and hopefully that there will something come out of that that can benefit maybe both sides a little bit.
A lot of the people here at Pyramid Lake know a lot of the farmers over there. Grew up with them, went to high school with them, meet with them at rodeos, do things together with them, meet at the auction yards. So they know them personally over there. And we get questioned as to why are we doing this to those farmers? Why are we doing this to their friends? In some cases, friends are turning against friends.
The conflicts of interest over Truckee water are not only between Native Americans and white Americans. Another Paiute Indian reservation is home to the Fallon tribe. They've got close historical ties with the Pyramid Lake tribe and depend upon the Newlands project for water.
We're all related. In fact, the migrating, the hunting in the olden, back in the 1800s, early 1800s, involved both tribes. They would go this way over there and they would come here. Some of them would come here to hunt and then go back over there for the fish, and vice versa. So we're all related one way or the other. We get our water from the project, so we're directly linked to them. The farmers here, that's their only source of water. There's not too many farmers right now making a living. I think there's only a handful, maybe 5 or 6 farmers that actually do this for a living anymore.
That'll be topped off here pretty quick.
Yeah. I'll have to come down, load her up, take her out.
hopefully some young people will pick up the farming lifestyle and continue on, because without farming, there really is nothing.
Probably 30, 40 years ago, I started farming. That's all I've ever done is farm. Full-time farmer. Yeah, it's good land. A lot of it has to be re-leveled, but most of it grows pretty good if we can get water for it. That's our main problem now. If they take the water from us, our farming will have to quit, and I don't know how we'll live then. We'll probably have to go to work on paying jobs instead of farming for ourselves. But somebody like me is kind of, you know, on over the hill on the downhill grade right now. I don't know what, I'd probably go on welfare. Yeah.
To the east of Fallon lies another potential casualty of this water conflict. The Stillwater Wildlife Reserve is an important resting and feeding area for migrating birds. The Fallon tribe value this area, in particular, for historical reasons.
The wetlands is our ancestral grounds. That's where our tribe evolved from, 3,000 to 5,000 years ago. And that's where a lot of our people are buried right now. And during the flood in 1986, the water raised way above the old boundaries of the wetlands down there. And then when it receded, it uncovered a whole bunch of burials down there. So that's an issue with us right now. And that's how we're tied to that area down there. That's where we came from originally.
While the arguments continue as to how much water should be diverted at Derby Dam, there's another ever-increasing user of Truckee River water further upstream, the growing urban area of Reno-Sparks.
The Reno-Sparks area has about 220,000 people, 65,000 acre-feet of water per year in serving those demands. It is a fast-growing area. It grows at about 2% per year, and its location is close to California. A lot of the conditions we have here, people in California think are quite desirable. The cost of living is lower here, the taxes are lower here. There's a lot of unskilled work here in the casino industries and tourism, so that people that are having a hard time finding work are generally being able to find work in Nevada. And so basically you've just got all different diverse types of people that are moving here to Nevada.
With all these competing interests for water, it was clear that legislation was needed. The Truckee-Carson Settlement Act became law in November 1990. The legislation is complicated, and only careful implementation will bring lasting solutions to the region. It would appear that the Pyramid Lake Tribe, who were the losers at the start of the century, are becoming the winners, leaving the Fallon farming community to rethink the future.
Had we been able to look in a crystal ball in 1902, when Congressman Newlands came up with this idea for the first Bureau of Reclamation project ever, we would have seen the drying up of Lake Winnemucca. Lake Winnemucca is as dry as the carpet that we're sitting on now. That's too bad that we've lost this very unique part of nature. We would have seen that in this crystal ball that we were drying up Pyramid Lake. But what they saw in 1902 was a desert blossoming like a rose. But I think in fairness to the generations of farmers who have been the beneficiary of this desert blossoming like a rose, maybe it would have been better off had we not done to them what now is happening. It's clear that farming, agriculture will never be the same as it was 20 years ago. Water is the most important natural resource we have. We can grow more trees. We can plant more bushes. We can move a shortage of animals from one place to the other. The one thing that we can't develop more of is water. We simply have to figure out a way to handle our short supply of water. Desalinization, it is very expensive. It leaves a tremendously dirty byproduct, that is salt. It's not going to be the salvation of all of our water problems that people think it will be. I believe in generations to come that water will be the center of conflict all over the globe.
Water is life. Water has a spirit, and you have to treat that spirit respectable. You can't fight over it. You can't make fun of it. You can't abuse it, because this water is what we are. The Pyramid Lake is what we are.
Annenberg Media. For information about this and other Annenberg Media programs, call 1-800-LEARNER and visit us at www.learner.org.